Now to our Meet the Candidate series, your chance to hear from the men and women in our area running for office. Today we hear from Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. He's seeking the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Fetterman is in his second term as Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. He's now making his second run for the U.S. Senate. He ran for the Democratic nomination in the 2016 election, losing out to Katie McGinty. The other Democrats running are Congressman Connor Lamb and State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta and Alex Khalil. The Republicans seeking their party's nomination for U.S. Senate are cable TV commentator Kathy Barnett, Montgomery County businessman Jeff Bartos, Philadelphia attorney George Paquetto, attorney Sean Gale, David McCormick, a former hedge fund CEO, Mehmet Oz, known for his Dr. Oz TV show, and former Ambassador Carla Sands. Fetterman recently addressed a controversial incident from 2013. That's when Fetterman says he heard gunshots and, armed with a shotgun, stopped a black man he says was running from the area. Now, Fetterman says he never pointed the gun at the man, who was never charged with a crime. Neither was Fetterman. The candidate addressed the incident at a recent forum.
I called 911. And I saw an individual in a ski mask, dressed completely, covered head to toe, had no idea what his race was, running from where the gunshots were coming from and heading towards our elementary school. And I made, as Braddock's chief law enforcement officer, after calling 911, I made a split-second decision to intercept the individual.
In a one-on-one interview, I asked Fetterman about that day, his campaign, and his opponents in the Democratic primary. Why are you a better choice for Pennsylvania voters for Senate than they are?
Well, I'm not saying I am. My job, as I see it as a Senate candidate, is to talk about my record, the things that I care about, and the kind of campaign that we've built and are running across Pennsylvania. The way I see it, your job, the viewers and the voters, is that's your job to decide who the best one is. I'm proud of the record that we've accrued as a small-town mayor, as lieutenant governor, and the race that we've run. We have the largest grassroots campaign of any challenger, Democratic or Republican, nationally. And I'm proud to say that we're in 90% of Pennsylvania zip codes. We have an unparalleled level of enthusiasm in grassroots Pennsylvania. And that's been reflected in our poll numbers. And the fact I'm proud to say that since the last time you and I spoke, we've raised $15 million, $29 a pop is our average. And I'm just so proud of the campaign that we've built now that we are basically a month away from the primary.
One of your opponents, Congressman Lamb, has picked up some endorsements in Philadelphia, the Democratic Party, the black clergy here. Do you feel like you've spent enough time talking directly to voters in Philadelphia, specifically black voters?
Yeah, absolutely. And
we're going to
we're going to spend more and more time here in Philadelphia, but we spent a great deal of time. And also, we released a new poll that came out today that we have 3 times the support of Congressman Lamb here in Philadelphia. We're at 24%, and he's roughly at 8%. So the numbers bear out, you know, the kind of campaign that we've run versus the kind of campaign and where he's at. And that's, I think, reflective of the true state of the race. And I'm also proud to say that we're also leading in the Philadelphia media market, too, in the latest round of polls that no one disputes. It's veracity, including Connor's own internal poll had him down 30 points. And now, unfortunately, he's chosen to attack me as a socialist. And his super PAC is spending $500,000 in dark money to attack a fellow Democrat, a Democrat who helped him win his first race out west.
Let me ask you specifically about that. How would you describe yourself? He called you he used the term Democratic Socialist, or I'm sorry, a PAC. Used the term Democratic Socialist in that
ad. He's used it too.
How do you describe yourself?
Well, I want to be clear that when his super PAC ran that ad, they had to take it down because it was demonstrably a lie. So they know it's a lie. Connor knows it's a lie more than anybody. And I'm a good, solid Democrat that supports the president, that supports basic, fundamental democratic principles like a $15 an hour living wage, access to health care for every American, the union way of life, equality for our gay and trans communities, investments in communities like my own that I've represented as mayor that have been typically divested in and didn't receive their fair share. So our campaign is a basic, solid, populist democratic movement, and the voters of Pennsylvania know that, and that's why we've built this really large lead in the polls.
I want to ask you about the 2013
Sure.
incident where you say you heard gunshots.
No, there were gunshots. I mean, multiple residents stopped the police, and they were emphatic that there were gunshots. There really isn't a dispute with that there were gunshots.
I know that you addressed this incident at the event that we were at tonight. What do you want voters to know about that?
Sure. I would want voters to know that Braddock is a community that's about 75% black, and I was proud to represent Braddock for nearly 14 years. And at no point during that brief incident was I aware of anyone's race or that it involved any type of profiling. It was about, as chief law enforcement officer and as the mayor of the community, protecting our community. And I'm also proud to have been a Democrat. I know what an issue gun violence is in Philadelphia. As mayor, I'm proud as a Democrat to say that we stopped gun violence deaths in my community for 5.5 years. And that's the kind of results that we generated during my time as mayor. And that's the kind of focus and commitment to a good community policing model and also combating gun violence, because it is an epidemic that has taken far too many lives.
You say that you were the chief law enforcement officer in Braddock, but at that point, hadn't you ceded the administration of the police to the police chief at that point?
That's not true. And you can look up at the Common Court ruling in mayors in Pennsylvania, chief law enforcement officer, that's the mayor. You're in express control of the police department.
So looking back at what happened, did you make a mistake that day?
It's not something that an incident that I would ever want to repeat, because it was a jarring experience. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of the record that I've accrued as mayor. And
would you do the same thing? Today?
Well, it's impossible to say, given that it was over 9 years ago and circumstances
do you think you did the right thing
different.
That day?
But what I did was, as chief law enforcement officer and as mayor, I made the split-second decision in an active shooter situation to make sure that the community was safe and secure. And that's exactly what I did. And the residents of that community elected me overwhelmingly 4 months later, and the issue never came up in that primary. And it's being brought up in this primary by individuals that are polling in the single digits or at 10% to try to give the impression that my record is anything other than what I've always maintained, and everyone's agreed that it has been.
But given what has happened in this country in recent years, given people watching what happened in the Ahmaud Arbery case, for example, can you understand that
Absolutely.
people have questions and maybe concerns
I
about
want to be clear. There is a terrible history of profiling and over-policing in black and brown communities, and anyone that hears cursory details of that, especially the way it's been misrepresented by my opponents, would be understandably concerned. But when you learn the facts and the details behind it, and the true underlying circumstances and the kind of community that Braddock was, and the fact that I've been elected again and again as mayor there, I think that is the truth, and people understand that. And this is an incident that has been written about and covered extensively, and still we maintain our commanding position in the polls.
What could Democrats do better to get more of their agenda through the Senate?
Eliminate the filibuster.
Is that it?
What?
That's it?
No, I was going to answer the question. Eliminate the filibuster and stop electing Democrats that are essentially going to vote like Republicans. I believe Democrats need to vote like Democrats and get some things done, like eliminating the filibuster. As long as we, as a caucus, are unwilling to agree on basic fundamental values like a minimum wage of $15 an hour, passing the PRO Act, passing voting rights protections, unlike we have currently right now, we are going to be stuck as we continue to be.
Stay with NBC 10 at Issue as we bring you more of the candidates running for office during Decision 2022. You can find all of our Meet the Candidate segments by going to NBC10.com/findit on 10.